Hi everyone and welcome to today's session, Automating Google Workspace, Offboarding and Data Archiving. I'm Anna from the Zenphi team and I'm really glad to have you here with us today. Before we dive in, just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. You'll get the recording tomorrow automatically, no need to request it. We have two of our automation engineers here live in the chat, so please use the chat anytime to ask questions. They'll be answered throughout the session. All right, let's get started. But first, if this is your first Zenphi webinar, let me give you a 30-second overview of what Zenphi is. Zenphi is a no-code automation platform built specifically for Google Workspace. It allows IT, security, HR, and operations teams to automate complex, multi-step workflows. Things like user onboarding and offboarding, access management, document processing, and data archiving, all natively integrated with workspace tools like Gmail, Drive, Admin, and Chat. Essentially, if you can describe the process, Zenphi can automate it without scripting or maintaining code. But a little spoiler, you can actually run the code within Zenphi. Maybe we'll see one of the workflows today that utilizes this functionality. But today we are joined by someone who has a really unique perspective on this topic. Hans Gössing, Google Cloud Space Architect, and runs Google's Executive Briefing Center in Munich. And he'll share how his team automates provisioning and deprovisioning for workspace demo environments, and why flexibility and policy automation are key even inside Google. And actually, how instead of using AppScript or any other solutions, Hans and his team utilizes Zenphi. Hi Hans, great to see you today.
Good to meet you.
Thank you for joining our session. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing in Google, and specifically what automation is important for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Jens. I'm working as a cloud space architect at Google in Munich. Cloud Space is our executive briefing center where we bring our top customers to a physical Google location to let them experience the latest and greatest of Google services and tools. And as such, I'm taking care of the Google Workspace experiences for our lovely customers.
So any of these tasks or workflows, if you put it this way, security related, you mentioned like access provisioning or maybe then revoking access afterwards, right?
Yeah, so we're trying to make these experiences at Cloud Space Munich as hands-on as possible. And that means for the workspace perspective, we are actually providing Chromebooks, Pixel phones, and workspace environment throughout the day to customers coming over. And obviously, I'm trying to prepare this environment to match as much as possible what the customer's environment could look like to make the hands-on experience perfect. And to do that, I need to prepare a lot of stuff like users, a shared drive, certain documents that I want to showcase, or also configurations across the workspace admin configuration. And that takes a lot of manual time if you do it for many customers throughout the months. Obviously, there come a lot of things in addition when it comes to the workspace configurations that we have capabilities for to make sure, I don't know, for example, this user cannot chat with other Google users outside of our environment because we don't want any data exfiltration there. And there it's a combination of actually our default setup in the workspace organization, but then throughout the Zenphi automation to make sure that the users that are created assigned to the right groups or right OU that are needed to actually apply these the policies that we have. It's a no-brainer for me because then I know it's automatically matching the correct things in my environment.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we are hearing from many of our customers and IT professionals who are reaching out, that automations that build with Zenphi are so much about policy enforcement. It actually brings all the fancy rules that any company would establish into life. making sure that everything is set in action as it's supposed to be. Can we a little bit backtrack to the starting point? Can you tell me what actually prompted you start thinking about automation? I would assume most of the things had been done manually. Can you please let everyone present today know what made Zenphi stand out for you compared to any other solution?
So my very first two flows that I created are rather simple. I already want to say that my flows became way more advanced meanwhile, but the very first two were as simple as managing a user creation flow for fellow Googlers working with me in our cloud space workspace organization, where I use Zenphi to go a little bit beyond what our default onboarding journey of a new user in Workspace could be. So I'm utilizing our own Google Forms to give fellow Googlers a self-serve way of requesting an account in our demo environment. And then I use Zenphi to be a little bit more comprehensive in what the end result of this request look like. It's not just a pure plain user that sits in the root OU with like no profile image and so on and so forth. It has a nice like cloud space related default profile image. It's ideally the user is moved into the right OU. I do set the Googler's core email as their backup email for password restore, for example. That's all of these things that make the experience with this user a better one without me doing it manually all the time or being dependent on the user doing it themselves. So it saves me time and them time. A second one I want to mention was that we use our environment for some public sharing regarding our cloud space program. There is as public information as simple as hotel recommendations in Munich. Yeah. But to showcase best practices in our environment, we have some policies set that only public sharing from a certain shared drive is possible. And once again, I provide my fellow Googlers on the team with a self-service way of simply moving files onto a shared drive. Everything else is done automatically. The automatic public sharing is applied. They get the link back, and it's just it gives them peace of mind to do the right thing. Maybe to already answer that third part, what makes Zenphi stand out? When we dig into the more complex workflows that I have set up meanwhile, and those are like, they would be large papers if I printed them right now, right? What stands out is first, obviously, the comprehensiveness of API endpoints that are enabled at Zenphi as a groundwork to even work with. But then what's really unique is the extensive framework of additional added value functionality in a Zenphi flow that's not even API related. Things like obviously starting with like a variable and your vault to store data for reusal, but then also going down to like the loop or the hold for a couple of seconds because you know your API is not going to react fast enough, or the subflow, which lets you again save a lot of time in Zenphi because you can reuse them. The doing operations in parallel, the going back somewhere in the flow, all of these things like regex, and especially the native Gemini integration that you meanwhile have. These things that really bring your workflow to life. That's what makes building Zenphi flows actually enjoyable.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. It actually brought me to thinking about the next question regarding Gemini. You brought it up. I was very curious. I know that in general, not so many IT operations manager use AI related features in Zenphi, but what about you? Are you guys leveraging any existing Gemini related connections?
Absolutely, absolutely. Regex is the best example. You know, obviously, I know what regex is. I know how to be an expert in regex is not too easy. Regex can be rather complex, and dealing with the different dependencies on the API payloads, you very often know that something would be possible because the data is there. It's just not there in the format you need it, and that's where regex really comes in handy because now with natural language, without being a regex expert, without leaving Zenphi, you just have to prompt the right way, and you'll find a way to extract exactly the data that further accelerates your workflow. And I use that like dozens of times already.
Now for the outcome, right? Can you describe the changes that Zenphi brought to you personally and your team?
It's probably three things. It's like time saved, not only for me, but also for team members. It's the self-service enhancements. People don't have to wait for things anymore. For example, the form for a new user. If someone needs to use in our demo environment, they really can completely self-serve through that one form, and within seconds they are done with what they wanted to achieve. And then third thing is probably peace of mind, because you invest into the process intelligence once. You like have to do the brain work once, and afterwards you have the peace of mind that that piece of your operations is behaving exactly as you are expecting it to do. Human error is not a thing anymore. If you repetitively do these things, you can always make errors. Now you only have to not make an error once when you build the flow, actually, and then you have the peace of mind. So these three things are the big improvements by using Zenphi, I would say.
Thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you for sharing your experience with everyone.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you, Hans. That was super insightful. It's always great to hear how Google itself approaches automation, especially at that level of precision and scale. And as you heard, they're using Zenphi to automate processes. Now let's make this practical. To show what this looks like in action, I'll hand it over to Fernanda Lopez, one of our automation engineers here at Zenphi. Fernanda will walk us through 3 workflows that together form a complete offboarding and archiving solution, one that can reduce operational costs by up to 80% while keeping full compliance. Fernanda, the floor is yours.
Let's kick things off with our offboarding flow. Now, this specific example starts with a Zenphi form, which you can configure at different parameters. Here we have questions like the recovery phone, their employee email, last time of employment, etc. So you can add as many questions as you prefer. However, let's say you want to start the flow in a different way. Maybe you don't want to start the flow with a form, maybe you prefer to do something else. You're able to choose from our available triggers. So if you want to, for example, start the flow when a user is suspended, when they're removed, when they're added to a specific Google group, or maybe track certain audit activity, you have the option to. We also have our webhook trigger, so if you want to kick things off, maybe when you remove them from your CRM system, you can also use an API call to be able to start your offboarding process. Now, what does this process consist of? First, we'll load their information from Google directory. That way we have all of their data. We're able to create information in a log, so you can make sure you audit all of this activity, who requested them to be offboarded, when, and add all of the information from the form. We're going to create a new password for them to make sure we can update that, and we can update their password and recovery information with our update user action. Now, some extra security steps: you can invalidate their verification code. Here we have also gone ahead and updated their Gmail out of office. That way they know that this specific user is no longer at the company, and you're able to add the information for their manager. That way they can contact them if needed. If you want to be able to delegate their email, you can also do that. So we can set that period up using our create Gmail delegate action. All you have to do is indicate which email you want to delegate and the delegate email, so in this case the managers. We can suspend the user and then update all of that information in the log. As we can see here, the status is now suspended the account, but there's different options depending on what stage of the flow the process is in. We'll go ahead and transfer the user's data to their manager using the transfer users data action. You have to choose whose data you want to transfer and who you want to transfer it to. You're able to choose if you want to transfer just Drive and Docs, Calendar, Data Studio, etc. And now one of the questions was if we wanted to archive their emails. So if we want to be able to do that, what it's going to do is call a subflow, which is in charge of archiving emails, which we will get to in a second as well. As you can see in all of these steps, we're able to update the status. That way you can easily create a dashboard to see what stage the different users are in. If your user is in multiple Google groups, what we can do is list the groups and then individually delete them from each group one by one using this for each loop. So this is great if they're in multiple groups. You don't even have to worry about removing them. Zenphi will do it all for you. And we can do the same thing for shared drives. So we can list the shared drives they currently belong to and then delete them easily. Once again, updating the log every single time. And then after the 30 days, we can go ahead and delete the Gmail delegation. Or if you prefer to leave it there, or if you want more time, you can also update that. Now keep in mind there's different actions in our toolbox that weren't used in this process, whether that's integrating AI, if you want to use Google Chat for any notifications, maybe instead of updating the status in a Zenphi table, you prefer to use Google Sheets, maybe you want to update your HubSpot or your Slack. You're able to choose from a plethora of actions, and even if you don't see one here, that doesn't mean you can't integrate to the system because we're able to connect to any public API using our HTTP actions. So if at the end of the process, maybe you want to notify your team via Google Chat, all you have to do is drag and drop the action, post message, configure it, and it's super simple. You can choose how to notify your team in just a few easy clicks.
Oh, thank you so much, Fernanda. This workflow looks very powerful. I received a couple of questions from our Zenphi users community. By the way, anyone is welcome to join it. It's www.zenphicommunity.com. So you can join it, post your questions before any webinar, and in general, explore our product and communicate with other users there. So one of the questions I've got is about the scalability of the onboarding flows. Realistically, how many employees can be onboarded per month or per week? I don't know, based on every company requirements with Zenphi workflows. How scalable are they?
That's the great thing about Zenphi. It's so easy to scale your workflows as you grow or as you find new needs to automate. So we have different tiers available, which we can share more information on if anyone is interested. And each tier is strictly guided towards that size company. So you can always scale, move on to the next one if you need more flow runs, but there is no limit as to how many employees you can onboard a month, as long as it's what's included in your tier. And we're always checking in on our team to see what you guys need, if you need help scaling, if maybe upscaling is a good idea. So we're always there to guide you in making those decisions as well. But realistically, scaling is super simple, and we make it easier for our customers as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Fernanda. And another one, again, I've rephrased it based on the workflow that you already demonstrated, but the question I received was about the remote devices or in general, remote devices management. What actions within the workflow of the onboarding can be used within Zenphi aside from signing out? Evidently, that part you already showcased. Basically, the question that I got sounds like for Chromebook or mobile device connected to Workspace, can Zenphi trigger the same actions an admin would do in the console?
Yes, we do have a couple actions which you can always add. That's the great thing about Zenphi, that you can add or remove actions to your process depending on your needs. But we do have actions that allow you to be able to take action on mobile devices. And if you want to take it one step further, you can even use APIs to be able to lock down Chromebooks, remove Chromebooks. So even more than what's available in the admin console.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's get to the next one.
Now, to actually be able to archive Gmail messages, this is how we're going to do it. So first, we want to make sure we update the status. So we have previously created a table for our offboarding process, so we can change the status of the inbox archive status to in progress. What we're going to do first is create a folder for this person where we're going to store all of the Gmail data. So we're going to create an employee folder. You can have a parent folder for all of your archived emails, and in this case, if you want to check if it exists, you can do that. So we're going to use one of our newest actions, our list users Gmail messages, and this is going to allow you to be able to retrieve all of those email messages. You can filter out if you don't want all of them. So if you want to use specific search query, maybe if it's only from a specific sender or in between certain dates, so you can add that if you want to filter out the emails. You can choose how many results you want to receive, as well as you want to see the spam and the trash messages. And essentially what we're going to do, to explain this in as easy of terms as possible, we're going to loop through each one of these emails. We're going to get the raw data from those emails using our find users Gmail message raw. And what this is going to do is return information from that email, like for example, who it's from, when it was sent, the size of the message, etc. And what we're going to do is create a text file with that information and save that file within the folder we just created. After we've done that, what we're going to do is we have a different table for all our archived emails. That way your auditing process is even more complete. So what we're going to do is create a record within that. That way each message is stored individually and you can easily access that information. So here we're going to be storing information like the thread ID, the user, who the sender was, when it was sent, the subject, the size. You can even add a link to the file that you had saved in the folder that we can easily access that message. And then what we're going to do is also update the archived count. That way you easily know how many emails have been archived for this user. Now, if you want to take it one step further, you can even create a Zenphi dashboard. Why is this useful? You can create your own tab where the users can easily access the form to be able to offboard a user if this is the method that you're going to be implementing. But you can also create a tab to be able to see what stage in the offboarding process they're in. So have they been completed? Is the transfer in progress? What is it waiting for? And as we can see, we can also see the total number of emails that were archived. And so it's a lot easier to be able to actually see what stage everything is in, keep an eye on it, and this is going to ensure that your auditing process runs smoother as well.
Thank you so much, Fernanda. I have a question here. Your workflow, the one that you demonstrated right now, assumes that data goes somewhere on a drive. The question is, can organizations choose to store archived emails directly in Google Cloud storage? Some of them, I know, despite of being the Google Workspace users, still use AWS buckets. So can this data be stored elsewhere instead of drive or shared drives?
Yes, you can choose where you want to save your data. Small spoiler, but we will be saving in Google Cloud Storage in the next flow, so you'll be able to see how that's done in real time. But yes, you can choose if you want to save it in Google Cloud Storage, if you want to share in Drive, if you want to save to a shared drive, if you want to use OneDrive, you can use all of the options. So you can choose wherever you want to save your information.
Awesome, perfect. Can't wait for the next one.
Now for this next example, let's say you want to be able to export a specific user's Google Chat data to your Google Drive. This is how you would be able to do that. Now for this example, we're using the Zenphi form trigger. However, like mentioned previously, if you want to swap it out for one of the other triggers, maybe the Google Directory or Google Audit trigger, you can do that. So our form is very simple. It's just asking for their email address. However, you can add more questions like the start date and end date, since you're able to narrow down the export to only a certain period. So our first step is going to be to create a folder with their user email address inside of our parent folder called exports. That way we can make sure everything is organized. We're going to go ahead and create the export. You can create a new matter or select from the ones here, and you can name it whatever you want. In this case, I'm using their email address and then Google Chat export. And then down at the bottom where it says account email addresses, we can indicate the one from the form. And if you notice down at the bottom, you're able to choose the start date and end date. So if you want to be able to narrow down the data to export, you can do that. We're going to go ahead and loop until the export is complete. So to do that, what we're going to do is use the find export to be able to get the export that's occurring. And then essentially what it's going to do is find the file and save the file. So it's going to find the file within Google Cloud Storage and then save it to Google Drive. And then in a few easy words, you could say it's going to be looping through the information until it's officially done, which will break the loop. And then after that, you can notify your team. So if you want to send a Google Chat message, an email, if you prefer to notify via Slack, you have the ability to do that. So as you can see, the Google Export action contains a lot of useful information. So in my message, I've let them know how many messages were exported, the total size, and then also the link to the original folder we created. That way they can be notified until it has been completed. However, if you prefer to add each one of the files to maybe a table, a Google Sheet, Zenphi table, you can also add that information in as well.
Thank you so much, Fernanda. All three workflows were exceptionally helpful and insightful. I have a question that is not exactly related to the last workflow that you showcased, but in general, that's what we're hearing from many IT teams. That's a big concern for many of them, is the data leaving the environment. And it happens a lot with any out-of-the-box lifecycle management tools or data storage and migration tools like CloudM, for example. The data has to leave the environment. My question is, can Zenphi be hosted inside a customer's own cloud? So all the workflows and all archives stay within their data perimeter.
The easy answer is yes. And in general, Zenphi makes it super simple to make sure your data is secure and you stay as compliant as possible. We actually have a ton of information regarding security on our website. So if that's something that interests you, especially for bigger companies, that is a huge concern and we take it very seriously.
Thank you so much, Fernanda. See you next time.
Thank you for having me.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Fernanda. So to summarize, Zenphi lets you automate the entire offboarding process end-to-end, from revoking access and cleaning up devices to archiving Gmail, Drive, and chat, providing you much more granular control over your automations than any lifecycle management tool. Your automations can be scaled easily from dozens to thousands of users in minutes. And the best part, Zenphi does it at a fraction of the cost of traditional lifecycle management tools. If you access the Handouts tab in the lower right corner, you can download 2 case studies we're sharing today, Google's automation explained by hands, and a case study of a global hospitality brand that switched from a lifecycle management tool to Zenphi and actually saved 80% of their operating costs. If you'd like to see how this could work in your own workspace environment, you can start a 7 days free trial or book a call with one of our automation experts. Just reach out at success@zenphi.com. I'll help you map your current process and show what's possible. As a reminder, you'll get the email with your recording and all necessary links tomorrow. Thank you again to Hans, Fernanda, and all of you for joining us. Have a great rest of your day. I will see you at the next Zenphi webinar.